dear friends, dear guests, dear fans of Tech and Law TV from Taylor Wessing. After our short summer break, welcome back to our October edition here from our Kicker Lounge in Hamburg. Today the topic is all about the Metaverse. Is the law ready for the Metaverse? What is the Metaverse actually? Where this is coming from? Where are the opportunities for companies in particular? And is the law ready for it? Is there law already, or do we need to develop new law? Is the EU Commission inventing another digital law? How many new experts we have to employ for our team to be ready for this new area? And as you know, that Mark Zuckerberg's around and he says, the Metaverse is the new big thing, and now we have no Facebook anymore, it's Meta. On the other hand, Tim Cook from Apple says, wow, I guess if I ask folks, what is Metaverse? In average, people really don't know what it is. And because of that, who cares about Mark Zuckerberg? Who cares about Tim Cook and Apple? We have our perfect experts here. We have Zach and Chris, which is much better. So welcome the two of you here on our Tech and Law edition around the Metaverse. We have Zach Lewis here. He's from the law firm Kernet, Klein und Selz, and he came right across from LA to Hamburg only for this session. He's the #1 blockchain and Metaverse expert in the States. And we have Christian Tenkhoff, IP lawyer based out of Munich, and he internally is our Mr. Metaverse. So perfect guests for this session. Zach, Chris, thanks very much for joining the show. And let's just jump into it very straight ahead. Zach, what the heck is Metaverse?
Well, thank you for having me. I want to start by saying that the Metaverse, it's important to understand that the Metaverse does not exist. The Metaverse is a concept that we are building. What is that concept? The idea of the Metaverse is a persistent virtual space where users can come to shop, play games, socialize, attend concerts, attend other sorts of meetings. And beyond that, the idea of the Metaverse is a virtual world where users can take their identities or digital objects or achievements in separate microverses, or you could think of them as video games, and carry them to different corners of the metaverse. So essentially, the metaverse is an idea where other smaller virtual worlds will be linked together in a meaningful way. But again, it's important to understand that the metaverse does not exist. The metaverse is a concept that we're working towards creating.
Oh, that's very interesting. I thought Mark Zuckerberg invented the metaverse and rebranded everything into Meta, but obviously that's not true.
That is a really good branding move on the part of Meta, but it is true what you're saying that it does not actually exist. So he is trying to basically make everyone think of his company when they think of the metaverse, because he's a genius and he knows that it's going to be the next big thing. But you know, the company formerly known as Facebook did not yet invent what we talk about when we talk about the metaverse.
So then who invented the name?
The name of the concept of the metaverse was first created by Neal Stephenson in a novel called Snow Crash in 1992, which actually came out a year before I was born. So I like to think that, you know, I was actually never alive in a world where the metaverse did not exist.
Okay, that's perfect.
But as we, you know, as generations continue to come forward and we see more people spend time online and playing video games, and we see that their virtual identities and the virtual worlds they spend time in become increasingly important to them, I think that, you know, the next two generations are never going to participate in the physical world without also participating in the metaverse.
Okay, that leads me directly to the next question. And this is, how do we access the metaverse? Is it that we have to run around with goggles all the time, or can we access it differently? How does it work?
So there will be different ways to access the metaverse. In the novel Snow Crash, it was, you know, typically it was accessed by goggles. But for the years to come, probably the easiest way to access the metaverse, or those three-dimensional worlds, will actually be our laptops, our smartphones. You know, you can direct or manipulate your avatar in the metaverse via your keyboard, your mouse, or on your mobile with a touch screen. And then as we progress, probably virtual technology will take a larger play a larger role in how people access the metaverse, because it is more immersive, right? You feel like you are right there. And then as we progress even further, augmented reality will probably become even a larger part of the metaverse, where you see virtual aspects in your everyday life through glass.
But you have an avatar.
So,
or not necessarily.
I think there are different ways how you can experience this. So if we talk about augmented reality, for example, you don't necessarily need an avatar. You will see information overlaid in the field you actually see, and then you will get additional information, maybe advertising, or maybe a reminder to call your wife or your aunt or your uncle. But when we talk about being actually in a three-dimensional world, as we just said, virtual reality, then yes, probably there will be avatar. People will have several avatars. They may have only one. So that's something that will still develop.
I mean, if we have these keywords, three-dimensional world, the new internet avatar, there's a slight memory of Second Life. And I must say, when Second Life came up, it was kind of a similar idea. We had Linden Lab dollars, so we had currency. I remember I had an avatar, everyone was excited. So is this now a Second Life, or is it something very new?
It's something very new, because Second Life is an example of what I mentioned before, which is a microverse. It is a isolated, even though you can consider it a universe, some people may call it a metaverse, it really is just an isolated virtual world. Nothing you can do in Second Life can be transferred over to any other video game or experience. The idea of the metaverse, like I said, is that these microverses are going to be interoperable in a way that your achievements and the things that you do in one game will carry over. But more importantly, when at least blockchain enthusiasts talk about the metaverse, the difference between the metaverse and what happened in Second Life is that, and there's actually a famous case in the United States where someone named Bragg sued Linden Labs for revoking his virtual property, which he considered to be his real property. Now, the interesting thing about the metaverse as it applies to blockchain technology is that you will have true ownership over your digital assets represented by non-fungible tokens, and you will be able to transact with people all over the world in different microverses using a singular currency or multiple different currencies that can be exchanged on the blockchain.
So that's quite interesting. So you are in one metaverse where you probably earn some money because you do something, and then you go in another microverse, all protected by blockchain, where you kind of sell it again for something else, like a game, buying a game.
Yes, and it's actually better for the creators of these virtual worlds and microverses or the metaverse, because through blockchain technology, they can set it up so that they get secondary sale proceeds every time these digital assets are sold. So if I'm playing a game and I spend several hundreds of hours, which people do, earning a rare digital artifact, and I stop playing the game, all that time has been, in a sense, wasted. But with the idea of the metaverse is that I can take that property, sell to somebody else, or use it in a way, in a totally different experience. And users who have not played that game may be able to identify somehow through either a wearable, a digital wearable, or some other asset or facet of my avatar that I have that experience in that game, or that I've achieved certain things, or that I've found rare objects. So you actually get to maintain like a persistent virtual identity across different microverses in the metaverse when it gets here.
Slowly start to understand. So that looks like business.
Yes.
So what should business do actually? So I assume there's excitement outside. So what is the takeaway for our clients actually?
Yeah. So there's definitely excitement when it comes to the metaverse. Actually, when clients contact us, there are a few questions at the beginning. The first we have already discussed, like what is the metaverse? And I think it's also okay to have a starting conversation with clients. What is the metaverse? What do we have to expect? Where will all of this lead? And then when we represent brand owners, the next typical question is like, do we need additional protection, right? Are we prepared for the metaverse? And as always, the answer depends, of course. But when we speak, for example, about fashion brands, then yeah, there is a conversation to be had whether those companies need to protect their brand also for the virtual space. Because Brands, as we all know, are not protected in the abstract. The trademark doesn't give protection for anything, not just for the word, but in respect to certain products. And if a company has protection now for a physical good, such as t-shirts or sneakers, that does not necessarily mean that they have protection also for the virtual goods. Because we talked about avatars just a moment ago, and those avatars, believe it or not, they will probably buy and wear digital fashion, right? And then the next step would be for companies to get protection for those digital fashion items and brand those digital fashion items and sell them online.
Okay, so but it seems that the magic is that you are not kind of locked into one little world, and you said that several times, so you have various little worlds and they interact, so interoperability is a key thing here. But how does it work? Is there a spin doctor who's getting all this together, or is it that you have like APIs making sure that you are interoperable with everyone? Who is the master of interoperability?
That's a great question. I would say there is no master of interoperability. The reality is that what it's going to take is for these individual platforms to come together, to decide to work together, to agree to make their microverses interoperable, and it's not until enough of them do so that we will have an actual iteration of the metaverse.
And are they already starting? Are there little metaverses already and waiting to launch?
There are microverses that have launched. Some are based on blockchain technology, some are not. For example, there's Decentraland, Sandbox. These are platforms that are based on blockchain technology where, again, your digital assets are represented by non-fungible tokens. But really, I think right now what we're seeing is a race for platforms and brands and companies to become the dominant metaverse, right? Even though, again, I'm reluctant to use that term because it does not exist yet, but it's going to be interesting. I think that we are, like I said, we're going to see a lot of maybe reluctance for people to actually embrace interoperability, but I think once a few brands and companies and platforms start doing it and they see how much it resonates with consumers and they see not only the benefits that consumers get, but the benefits that they receive as well in terms of just, you know, having additional transactions on their platform, I think we're going to see more and more of these companies decide to communicate and work together. It's not going to be that tomorrow every one of these platforms that we talk about today is going to be interoperable with each other. This is a journey that we're on, and I have a, you know, maybe even a several decade timeline when I think about when the metaverse will actually be here.
That's very interesting. So it's a little bit like in the late years of the last century, when everyone was excited about the internet and opportunities, but it took another 10, 20 years actually now to materialize. So we are now still in this like fantasy vision period, but still clients are calling, and you said, I mean, being an IP lawyer, doing trademark, they already want to be there. So do you have instructions yet? People saying, protect my brand in the metaverse, which is not existing already?
So as I said, companies are starting to file, and that means also that now the IP offices are starting to look into this. They are getting a lot of trademark applications, and we assist clients in, you know, discussing with the offices where do these new products, where do they fall, where do they and how do they have to be categorized within the existing systems. And in these conversations, the EU IPO, for example, is very transparent in saying that all of this is also new for them, and they are saying that they are relying heavily on the lawyers, on the parties, to explain in their submissions to the office, you know, what the products are that are being applied for and what are being disputed about.
And is it only brand protection, or are there other laws they're asking you, or you could imagine, which apply?
Me as a brand lawyer, it's, you know, almost entirely brands, but I'll pass it on to Zach. I think he has a more diverse portfolio when it comes to the different types of laws he advises on.
Yeah, so Frankfurt Kernet is a media and entertainment firm that's in New York and Los Angeles. We do have a blockchain technology group, and when we help brands or creators, you know, foray into the metaverse, obviously we focus a lot on intellectual property and, like Christian said, protecting your IP in these virtual spaces. But what's also really important to understand is the advertising and consumer protection laws that apply here, especially as it applies to minors, because at least agencies in the US are taking issue with the fact that it's really hard, especially for children, to distinguish between advertised content and just playing a video game, especially when things are so seamlessly integrated into one of each other, like virtual billboards and digital wearables, right? And beyond that, another really interesting thing is the data and privacy considerations when it comes to this, because a lot of people are under the impression that when they use, digital wallets and blockchain technology to access these virtual worlds, that they're actually anonymous. But that is very far from the truth, and we won't get too deep into that, but it's just important to be aware that privacy and data security considerations are very important here.
Very good news for me being a data protection lawyer. Thank you
Yes,
very much.
exactly.
I was wondering, no privacy issues, that's not possible. I assume there will be a lot actually. But going back to the whole concept, people also talk about Web3,
yes,
when they talk about Metaverse. Can you explain to us what does it mean? Maybe you can even explain to us what is Web 2?
Yes, I would love to. So Web 3 is the next iteration of the internet. And let me start by explaining what Web 1 is. So Web 1 is known as the read-only internet. When you visit a website, you could read the content that's on that website. Great. Web 2 is the version of the internet that exists today. It's the era of social media. You can read and write. So I can go to Twitter, I can go to YouTube, I can go to Facebook, and I can read content, but I can also create and upload my own content. Web 3 is the read, write, and own version of the internet. So when I upload my content to certain platforms or microverses, not only can I access the content that other people create, not only can I create my own content, but through blockchain technology, I will actually own the content that I create. And another important distinction between Web 2 and Web 3 is that Web 2, when you do upload this content, you need permission. You have to have an account. You have to have a password. And again, the property can just be taken away from you. The content that you upload can be taken away from you. And when you upload it, the platforms that you upload it to own everything that you upload and license it back to you, right? So in Web 3, not only do you not need to have accounts and passwords in certain virtual worlds, and that's by virtue of having digital wallets, which allow you to just access these platforms without having to create specific usernames for every single microverse. So again, you'll be able to own your own content, and you won't have to ask for any permission to upload it, to create it, and to distribute it to the world.
Quite interesting and a very good explanation, 1, 2, 3, which makes it very obvious and also instantly wow, this adds another huge layer of complexity to the internet under the brand Web 3.
Yeah, and I just want to follow up by saying that Web 3 and the metaverse are very distinct concepts, but when we talk about the metaverse and what it's ideally supposed to be, it embodies a lot of the ethos of Web 2, which is permissionless entry, ownership of your own content, etc.
And building up on that, I think also the ethos is something that's very important and dear to your heart, because the whole idea of creating this rebellion of Web 3 and of consumers being able to own their digital identity. There's a lot of people, even though the metaverse is something distinct, a lot of people hope that all of this carries and will be carried into the metaverse, right? This idea of creators being able to have digital ownership, and consumers in particular having this digital ownership and carrying on.
It sounds really very interesting what's going on there, and I wonder let's say we are all lawyers, from a legal perspective, is the law ready for this? I mean, you said it will materialize probably in 10 years, so we have a little bit more time. But I wonder, is the existing law enough and we just have to apply it for the metaverse? Or is it that we need a whole lot of new law? What are you thinking?
Do you want to start with that?
Yeah, so trademarks, again, maybe the boring answer, but the true answer. Our trademark law is very flexible, so it is actually capable of adapting to different scenarios where trademark law applies. So we can look at online video games, for example, where a lot of the questions that have come up have already been dealt with when it comes to jurisdiction, territoriality. So in that sense, I'm quite confident that trademark law will be able to handle the challenges that the metaverse will put forward. It's probably in the hands of the offices, of the IP offices, of the judges, of us lawyers, to dig into this material and see how the law applies. And we will have to be, we will have to look at the case law, how it develops, and be familiar with the current case law, and that will show us how to apply the law. But I don't think we need a new trademark law. I think that would be more advertising.
Trademark, fine.
I'd say yes.
Others?
I do think that the law should be updated, especially as it applies to blockchain technology. But as far as the metaverse goes, I do think that, is existing a law enough? That's an interesting question. But what I will say is the laws that do exist are enough for us to be able to advise clients on how to enter the metaverse, how to protect themselves, how to protect their brands, how to protect consumers, et cetera. But this is not the first time that technology has progressed quicker than the law. So I think that, different countries are going to handle it differently, and that's going to cause a lot of different challenges. But a lot of people who are expecting there to be a law of the metaverse, I'm not holding my breath for that, because we do have issues with conflicts of laws, jurisdiction, territoriality, like Christian mentioned. So there's not going to be, at least for a long time, in my opinion, a globally applicable set of laws that apply to every facet of the metaverse. But I do think it's important for people to understand that the best we can do right now is to familiarize ourselves with laws as they exist, as they apply to other forms of technology. And until regulators across the world really come to terms with what's going on, we just have to do our best with what we have.
I think it's going to be very interesting, and probably for our international lawyers will be very busy, and I wonder if there will be an element of politics also coming into it. Just imagine what's happening now with China, Russia, different economic blocks. If we have this seamless interoperability we're talking about or not, do you think politics will play a role there?
I think they play a role in everything these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there might be, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think there might be a risk, of course, that there will not be the one all-encompassing metaverse for the entire globe. There could be, theoretically, some three-dimensional worlds or some aspect of what we want the metaverse to be that will be separate and that will be more localized. I mean, that certain tendency in that area also seen, I think, in the internet, where there's the question of whether, there are localized versions of the internet that are separated from other areas, and if things don't play out how the Web3 ethos would like them to, that might be a scenario. Yes.
And for you personally, the two of you, you both picked something up very early, and the first question is, where did you met actually? You are based out of Munich, you are in LA. Where is this coming from?
Yeah, so
Metaverse lawyers.
I'll tell that story. So last year I started a Discord server called Blockchain Barristers, which is an online community that now has several hundred lawyers and law students all across the globe, focused on the intersection of blockchain technology and the law. And Christian joined the Discord a few months ago and had just reached out to me as the founder and thought, I'd like to get more attorneys in Europe interested in this or involved in this. And over the course of several months, we've had a lot of conversations about NFTs, blockchain, the metaverse, and just how exciting all these new opportunities are. And so I was very thrilled when he invited me to come speak about it here.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you met because you share the same passion for that. So for those who would like to join, what do they have? You have a website or whatever? We're going to display it.
Yeah, I'm actually currently working on the website, so it does not exist yet, but anyone can send me an email to zlewis@fkks.com. And if you're an attorney or a law student, I can get you an invite to the server.
Really, so attorney or law student?
Yes,
so it's
anyone
really,
who's law adjacent.
Yeah. Okay,
yes.
That's really interesting. Very last question. What is the thing which makes it so exciting for you personally? First you, and then our external guest.
For me, the first time I got really excited was when I actually put on virtual reality goggles for the first time, and the stuff I could see there, I felt like I was in a sci-fi movie. And it was, I didn't know that our technology was this far, and it felt very real, and I could interact with my surroundings, and I had a menu in front of me, and it felt like in a movie. So that's the first time when I thought, okay, we are going somewhere with this. This is exciting.
And yours?
I'm excited because this is the next frontier of human interaction. I really do believe this is where people are going to be spending a lot of their time, like I said, shopping, playing games, socializing, attending concerts. Not only that, but I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for job creations, and that people will have careers in these virtual worlds in the metaverse similar to the ones that they have in the real world. And there's going to be bustling metaverse economies across all these different industries. So to me, as someone who's seeing all these companies from several different industries, from video games to fashion to music to food and wine, enter the same, space or area, I'm just excited to see how it plays out. I think the possibilities are limitless.
Hopefully we will not turn more and more into coach potatoes because we can do everything virtually, but you are the living example that this is not the case, because instead of communicating via webinar with us, you come to us physically. So even with the metaverse, there will be room for analog interaction. Yes. Thank you very much for this really very interesting conversation and for opening a window for all of us. Like now everyone has a bit of understanding what is the metaverse. So thanks very much. And thanks for listening. Thanks for joining the show. And don't miss our next November edition. Have a nice evening. Goodbye. See you soon.
Thank you.